Howdy,
Yeah,
Mark.
I'm in the building.
Yeah, you are in the building. You're early. Welcome. How you doing? How's your day going? It's Monday, so how is it?
Oh, the day is going super fantastic. I'm feeling good. How's my audio sounding?
Yeah, it's really good. It's perfect.
But if it doesn't sound like a podcast, then I'm not happy. So that's what I was fussing around with, trying to get my audio to
Okay.
work with this external mic.
Sounded like a podcast. I don't know about that. So the thing is, after the recording, I'm gonna edit it for Spotify and Apple Music. So I'll do a little bit of, making everything sounds crisp. So you don't have to worry about that. But for now, it's perfect.
All right, sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna just you know, we're gonna start fully like 05. That's 3 more minutes. So giving enough people the chance to just come in here to like hear the conversation live and not have to listen to the recording. Of course, a ton of people are gonna do that. But let's just give it 3 more minutes. Okay. Um, let's see. Do I really want to wait 3 more minutes? I think we should just go. So we keep to an hour. What do you think? You're muted, by the way, just in case.
Yeah, I just realized that. I think that whatever you want to do, I'm down for.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, sure. Let's go for it. We just start now. So welcome everyone. Um Today I have Mark as a special guest for these my special guest Twitter spaces. This one it's a new one because we're going to be talking about web dev, present and future. And I'm going to allow Mark introduce himself, and then we get into it. As always, by the end of the towards the end, you could all request the mic, come ask Mark your questions and all that. So, Mark, could you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and everything you want to share. Plus, a fun fact about you.
That is a lot of stuff. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Mark Thompson. You can also call me Mark Techson online. That's how you can find me at most places. What do I do? So I'm a senior developer relations engineer working on Angular, and I work at Google. Fun fact about myself, I actually play guitar, and that's a thing that I've been doing for about 20 years, and I love it to death. It's one of my favorite hobbies to be able to get away from the stress of technology. And yeah, that's me.
Wow. Like, that's amazing. I would not have guessed that, but I'm not surprised. I've interacted with a lot of tech folks who play an instrument. I also play the piano. So that's cool. Are we gonna see a recording of you somewhere of you playing? Maybe YouTube perhaps?
Yeah, there are some videos of me on the internet playing music, so you could probably find it if you looked hard enough. Or if you followed me on Twitter, I was actually, I like to do a lot of things in public, like when I'm learning something new, and I've been trying to kind of take my guitar skills to the next level. And part of the way to do that for me was to learn some new techniques. And so I was actually documenting that journey for a while where I was just showing my progression through some new techniques.
Awesome stuff. I for the longest time I've had this, the dev band dream team. You're in there right now, of course. So in my head, we're gonna meet somehow, or we're gonna just play our hearts out. That's gonna be fun enough. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for that introduction. So we're gonna be talking about web dev, present and future. How do you want to get into it, really? I'm thinking you want to start from the present, right?
Sure, let's start there.
Awesome. So before we get into it, you're in the Angular team. I have amazing love for Angular, and I really love what the the whole movement happening in Angular is really admirable. Like, I love it. From standalone components to the RFC for signals is brilliant. So I'm guessing that's part of what you're excited about presently for web dev.
I think that's interesting what we're doing. I think what we're doing right now is really interesting because we have been one of the frameworks that's been around for quite a while, and we were innovators in a lot of spaces in terms of things that other developers and technologies have taken influence from. For example, if you look at Evan Yu's story from Vue, he admits that like some of the influence for Vue came from things he learned from Angular. And so we're able to do a lot of stuff. And I think right now we're in a really fantastic position where we have some amazing talent on the team. And then we also just have a lot of just empathy and compassion for the developer community. So we're trying to build the best experience possible.
Yeah, and I feel, even if, most people new to web dev would be like, oh, Angular, no, that's so old. But for the longest time, I've always believed and I've seen the influences that Angular has had in the broader like UI framework, and not just UI, right? Because Angular was like the whole thing, and it gives this solid, stable framework for enterprise UI. And I've loved it, but not enough to want to use it because I was so scared of the code because it was a whole lot of patterns going on and providers and a lot of files I had to parse. But recently, it's feeling like it's getting more lightweight. I saw someone from the Angular team. He also tweeted that he's going to give an introduction to Angular course in a university lecture, and he also mentioned that he had to the code wasn't as much as before because of all the new things that are happening. So is it the goal for the Angular team right now to reduce the the code you have to write, or is that just a side effect of the entire movement?
I think it's a little bit of both. We noticed right off the bat that there were some people who were saying there were a lot of files. Even myself, when I joined the team, I was just saying, yeah, there's a lot to get through just to be able to understand where to start. And the team, we acknowledged that and we just started making things better. And it's going to get even better. It's going to get even better there. So I have a new course coming out for Angular where we really simplified the learning journey pretty significantly. And that's going to be something that we're going to continue to stay focused on, that because people will say that Angular is for enterprise. Well, enterprise teams have really enjoyed the benefits of Angular, but we think that it's even available to even more groups. Like we think that you can build apps of all sizes with Angular, and we've seen teams build apps of all sizes with Angular. So we want to continue that legacy.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel you are more solid to do that because right now, so for the longest time, I don't know, we sort of equate enterprise with a bunch of complications, but I feel like what really got me into Vue was like it is progressive, right? From you could sprinkle it, you could build complex application, or you could just use it for a part of your UI. But with Angular, it wasn't always like that, but now it's looking like it can be that, right?
Right. So right now with Angular, we are really reducing the number of concepts that you need so that way you can arrive at that same experience. But also, I do want to talk a little bit about just web dev present because I know people, came here to hear about web dev present. And I do want to touch on that because I think what's hard right now as a developer is to know what to do next and to know where to go next. And I think that there's just a lot of opportunity to clarify, well, at least what I think, as what Mark thinks is the right way to go forward.
Sure. So, mm, what are those things you want to clarify on, Mark?
So first and foremost, I think as a developer, just focus on building accessible applications as your core thing. So if I were to start my career over right now, what would I do? Right? What would I start with? I would tell people right now, even with AI being the news of the town, everybody's talking about AI. Like I get all that, and I think that is a part of the web dev future, which we'll talk about hopefully at some point. But I think right now, like make sure all your applications are accessible because there's a large group of the internet of people who do not use the internet the same way that we do if you don't have any disabilities. and we're excluding those people. We're excluding people from the market share. Like, it doesn't even make business sense to not make an accessible application. Like, if you think about it from that point of view, it doesn't even make business sense, because why would you exclude people from potential customers to potential organizations that could use your tools and use your software? So you should start there with just accessible applications. And then I think that if you want to, figure out, like, okay, well, what should I learn next? Here's where I jump in and say, learn whatever people are hiring for in your local job market, or you can get a job. Like, learn that technology. As much as I want to tell you learn Angular, if nobody's hiring Angular in your city or in your town, then why would you spend your time there? Spend your time learning the thing that's going to help you to get a job and help you to be successful.
That's some awesome stuff. I was just writing that down in the comments. So it's the two things you said is really key. They are really important. First of all, a lot of people have their career on the front end, and anytime I raise the question, do you focus on accessibility, or is that like you do it or you don't do it at all? And most people don't even know the importance of it, because I feel the most people get into front end, they are in this sort of bubble of like, I just build the apps. I don't really. So the simplest thing of all would be like, make sure your images have a very good and descriptive alt text. Most people don't even think about that. So how my career, I made a Chrome extension that mimics how someone would see my website if they were colorblind, right? And just trying to do that really gave me the empathy to like, whoa, this stuff is someone's reality somewhere, right? So we have to make sure all our apps are accessible and inclusive. There's a whole lot to accessibility that we don't really care about. So the thing is, how do we get more people to think about accessibility and not just think about it? That should we also rely in our tools to help us, not just in the right path to do this?
Yeah, so the way to get people excited about accessibility is to remind people that you should build for everybody or don't build for anybody. Keep that as a core tenet of your understanding. Build for everybody. Like, really think about, when you're building application, how can you make it better for everybody? And here's the funny thing. I didn't really understand accessibility as a core concept until I had a kid. Because, and this was in the real world, I noticed how many doors were not automatic. And it wasn't that I had a disability. It was just that I found out this one core idea, is that accessibility usually serves everybody. Like, it makes the world better for everybody. So think about your applications. Like, think about how much you use subtitles in your applications, or when you, like, if you're using like Netflix or Hulu or video, you're using subtitles. Think about how you use your keyboard to navigate through a website, because it can be faster for you. But so if you think about building for everybody, like, you're building in critical infrastructure into your application that serves everybody, and then you're just making it better for everybody. So start just when you begin from the ground floor. Don't think about, oh, I'm going to add accessibility later. Think about it now. So that's what I think about the present. Like, there's just still too many developers who are coming into the game without an idea of like how to do semantic HTML or semantic user components on the UI, etc.
Yeah, that's on another level, really. I don't know. Uh, the- So most of the resources we have, like teaching web dev, because I feel they're trying to make it as simple as possible, um, or maybe simplistic. We don't even focus on this stuff, right? Like maybe you're doing a course and just to get things going, you just use divs everywhere. But these people, they don't know better, right? So they're going to assume that they could just, make everything a div. And even the simplest rule of like having one H1 on the page, that might not even be obvious except you really know what you're doing, right? So it's gonna be tricky to get people in this mindset of accessibility if the educators are not bringing that front and center. Do you think so too?
So that's a great question. So as I just designed my latest course, one of the things that I thought about was, not only is the code accessible, is the course accessible. right? So how do you make an accessible course where all the content can be consumed by people, regardless of ability? And so I thought a lot about that even when I was designing it. You see the difference there? Like I thought about the language that I use. For example, people when they write courses or they do tutorials online, they say, "Oh, if you could see my screen, look right here." Now, what if I'm blind or vision impaired? What if I cannot see your screen? Right. So think about how many people are excluded in that moment by itself, right? If you're not thinking about it from the inception of the thing that you're making. So now I don't say, look at my screen. I describe what's happening, but then you got to describe it in such a way that doesn't make people who can see it feel like, man, bro, I can see what you're talking about. Like, get on with it. So it's like it's something that's taking a lot of time to figure out a path forward. There's one way to do it. I'm not sure if this is the best way or not, but this is my first attempt at really trying to make a fully accessible course, right? And so I'll get feedback, and then I'll find out that yes, I did some things right and I did some things wrong.
Yeah, it's really like I feel it's really hard, especially for us trying to do it like an afterthought, like it and to really be empathetic enough and trying to add that in. I love that your new course you're taking that approach. It's amazing. It's brilliant. So segueing into another thing you spoke about as you talked about web dev present is learning the tech based on your location. Most especially us in JavaScript, we are notorious. There's always one new framework or library coming out every other day. So what i- are your advices for someone that want to learn? And I know it's easy to just say learn based on your location and the job you want, but with everything coming so quickly, new shiny things to try, how do you not get distracted and just focus? Like you've been doing Angular, right? Of course, there have been other frameworks, but you've stuck with Angular. So how do you get into that mindset to be focused on a tech that's relevant to what you want to get into?
Well, first and foremost, I think about shipping. Like, are you able to ship something? And so that's the way that I've always chosen my technology throughout my entire career is what can I do? What tech can I use that will allow me to ship? Like I got to get it off of my computer, out of my head and out into the real world. So before I joined the Angular team, I actually was working on Flutter and I was doing Flutter development. The reason I chose Flutter is because it allowed me to ship my last product that I was creating independently. So, what do you do if you're really interested in the new and shiny things? Well, it's nothing wrong with it being a hobby. It's totally fine for it to be a hobby for you to like check out new things and learn new patterns. I think that's totally reasonable. But then I also say, you have to balance it. It also depends on your situation. If I'm trying to get a job right now, I think my hobby is going to be focused on the technology that can get me a job. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's just I'm old school though, right? I've been working for almost 20 years, so yeah, I'm just old school. So I think about like what's going to get me a job. And then, I'll think about, okay, now how can I afford to be more flexible and figure out, different things and try different technology.
Of course. So I think Kelsey Hightower would say be a T-shaped engineer in the sense that you aim for both depth and breadth. So you focus on the depth like 80% of the time. So for me, I've always learned the tech based on what I want to do currently. So I've used Flutter. I needed it to build like an iOS app and an Android app. So I learned Flutter. Before that, I was building solely an iOS app and I learned Swift for that. So it has always been out of like the need to build stuff and ship stuff, and it has driven me. But I did not want to be short-sighted and also keep an eye on the broader web dev things. So I created a show, TKYT. So I get to bring these people to teach me this stuff so I'm aware. But my core competence, the things I care about, I just focus on that and go deep. So yeah, I think that's one way to go. But you have to admit it takes a lot of discipline not to be swayed with what's trendy, right?
Oh, it totally takes discipline. And I'll tell you, here's a really interesting thing is that right when and this isn't about Angular. This is just a history lesson. So way back in the early 2010s, when all the frameworks first came out, Angular wasn't even the only framework. There was Batman, there was Can, and there was Knockout. I mean, there were like Spine, Backbone. I mean, there were so many frameworks. And it was easy to be like, okay, which one, I got to learn them all. But it's not Pokemon. You don't have to catch them all, right? Like, I wouldn't even think about it like that. Like, I would think about it like, okay, let me look at the industry trends. So you have to learn this important technique. It's how to identify industry trends and not be swayed by the hype, right? So there's a difference. So I looked at what's really hype and then what's actually the industry trending. Where are organizations adopting? What are they adopting? Like, what are they actually using? Because what they're actually using, as I go back to my original point, those are the things that can help me figure out how I can get a job. So if you're gonna if you're in the US, a lot of organizations are using two frameworks. They're using Angular and React. That's huge in the US, right? Angular and React. And yeah, Vue was popular, but I'm talking about getting you a job, right? I don't know what the job market looks like for Vue. I think there are orgs that are using Vue in production, totally, right? But then what about one of the brand new frameworks that just came out last month or something, right? Should you rush to learn that? I don't know. Could you learn it for fun? Sure. You should learn it for fun. You should get out there and just experiment. But like, if you want to use that T-shaped example from Kelsey Hightower, yeah, you can like be on that top bar as much as you want, but you got to dive deep on something and focus on the outcome that you want. What is the outcome that you want?
Yeah, I totally agree. So you have to focus on, like, you have to be realistic, right? What are people using in my current environment, and how will that influence the tech I'm going to choose? And also, like, I feel at this point, of the tech we use are solid enough that they are almost at feature parity. And depending on the kind of job you want, if you aim for depth, really know the tech, and of course know the language first, because I'm always a strong advocate of knowing the language first, because you could pick up any framework easily, because at the end of the day, you just have to learn the syntax of the framework. But if you don't know your language, you're gonna struggle, right? You're definitely gonna struggle. So know your language and you could pick up any framework. Like, I could easily dabble in Svelte or Solid because I know JavaScript, right? So it's gonna make that easy. So know your language, then pick a tech you want to get deep into because of the kind of job you want and the ones that are available in your current location. I love it. So yeah, any other things in web dev presence you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would just say that finally, I agree with you about learning the fundamentals. There's a great book series that I always recommend to people every single time they ask me about how can they get better at front end development, and it's called "You Don't Know JavaScript." That's an open source book series. I mean, you just really don't know how much you don't know until you read this book. And it's such a great series of just going into the fundamentals. And then you're not exposed to magic. So the problem with a lot of frameworks is they feel magical because you don't have any idea how they're doing what they're doing. But once you learn the kind of core concepts, it really changes that. And then you can reason about what's happening around you and the technology that you're using. So just like you said, learning your fundamentals, that has to be foundational.
For sure. And it's a funny thing you mentioned the book, because I'm reading book two of it currently. I did a little bit of challenge in February where we had a Twitter space for every day in February, just reading at least a like 2 pages of the book. So we finished book one on Twitter, right here on Twitter, and a lot of people said they've never finished a JavaScript book before. And like every language, JavaScript has its nuance, maybe more than other languages, but most people, they tend to complain that JavaScript is hard because I think the first introduction to the language was from the eyes of a framework, which is, in my books, is the wrongest way to start, because you wouldn't even know where the framework starts and where the language end. Because I've literally seen folks believed that the dot map method belongs to React, which is totally false, but you can't really blame them. They started learning with the framework. So the book series, it's just amazing. There's so much in depth. I'm currently reading Scope and Closures, and it is so deep, like really brilliant. So I'm going to link to it so anyone could just go read it. It's free on GitHub. Please read it. It's amazing stuff.
No, sounds good. Uh, so you tell me what you want to do next. You want to take some questions now and hear from the people. I feel like we've been talking a lot. I'd love to hear from people, but or we can like continue our conversation. I'm open.
Yeah. Let's hear from people. Then we could go to the future maybe afterwards. So you all could come up, just request the mic. Don't be shy, and come have a conversation. Let's talk about web dev. Everything we've talked about. If there's anything you want to have clarity on, please come up and ask.
And shout out to all the people in the room hanging out with us. It's awesome to see people in here. Tayamba, I see what's going on. Shandai, let's go. Natalie in the building. Loki in the building. So many cool people. So thanks for coming to hang out today.
Yeah, thank you all for hanging out. I just linked to the You Don't Know JS series. I think just book one and two of because there's like a revision of the book right now. So I think the book one and two is available for everyone to read. So hi Shondai, thank you for coming. Big fan. So yeah, since we don't have any questions or anyone requesting the mic, so we'll probably want to get into future. We like almost at the 30 minutes mark.
All right. Well, let's talk about it.
Okay, cool. So what about web dev future are you excited about? Because I know a lot of people are excited about AI. I'm not really the biggest fan, but are you also excited about that?
So I'll be honest with you. I think development in general will be changed forever because of the introduction to this level of AI where it's like available to people and it's like just out there. But what I think is the future is not necessarily letting AI write your code for you. I think for you as a developer, where you want to be, here's where I think you want to be. I think you want to be on the side of developing applications that use AI, right? Things that you build that include AI tools in your application. I don't think you should focus on how do I become. I mean, I know people are like, well, I want to become a prompt engineer. Cool, go for it, right? Like, sure, do it. I mean, if that's what floats your boat and finds your lost remote. But what I say is that on the other side of that, I think you should learn how to build tools that use AI. Generative AI is huge right now. So things that can you can give it a prompt and then it returns like all this like new information based on the large learning models, language models. I think that stuff is interesting, right? But I think what is more interesting is you taking advantage of tools that allow you to build applications with AI features. And I think that it'd be in your best interest to start to learn that stuff now. I don't care what anybody has said on the internet. Watch out for the internet. Don't even listen to me if you feel unsure about it. But so many people are like, "Oh, you're going to be behind. Your job is going to be gone in 6 months or 1 year or blah blah blah." Yeah, bump all of that stuff. Forget all of that nonsense, right? So here's what you should do though. Make sure that you're learning about AI now, learn and then learn how to implement. That is the surefire way to remove the fear that people are having right now about what's going to happen to their jobs. Because what's going to happen is the baseline will change. Your foundational knowledge of JavaScript and HTML and CSS is really valuable right now. But eventually, people will be able to just request that from generative AI systems. But where the real magic is you understanding what that code means that gets generated because no matter how good the AI is, it's not creating something new. It's actually just running off of what? Training data. Guess what that training data is going to have in it? Human patterns. And guess what human patterns have in them? Flaws. But if you don't know what the code means, you will not be able to identify the flaws when they come out. So if this isn't a knock on AI and hallucinations in AI, this is me telling you how to be prepared. And the best way to be prepared is for you to get involved in the building of these systems. There are tools right now that democratize AI use. outside of just generative AI, right? So you got things like TensorFlow that works in JavaScript. You don't even need to know Python. Bananas, right? That you can use right now to start incorporating AI into your tools and systems. So that's what I think the future is building more sophisticated web applications that take advantage of AI.
Amazing stuff. You know, eh, the old AI stuff, the way I think about it is like Iron Man and Jarvis. And where most people are scared of like who is going to take my job, I've always been thinking, well, it's just going to make you better because, and the, you know, no technology is good or bad really. It's just it's really abstract, right? It's just the way you use it. Because one of the reasons why I'm very skeptical about AI, because I have a community of people learning JavaScript, and they sort of joke that okay, if you ask a JavaScript question, I'm just going to ask the chat GPT or something. But the you doing that is you not really helping your learning really, because you're asking it to write the code for you. But I think a right way to want to use the AI in that case is to sort of like use it for explainer. I wouldn't use it in isolation because I've seen it fail epically, like epically, in some of the explanation it gives, because of course it's flawed. But if you're starting out in web dev, you shouldn't be using it to write your code. What do you think about that?
I think that everything is flawed. I think we're flawed. I think that we write bad code now. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think we write bad code, and I think that tools can write bad code. But here's how I would use AI right now. If you already know how to code, if now we talk about using it, right? I would use it as an accelerator to like boost my like productivity where I can. Like I don't think it makes sense to ignore tools that can be helpful to you. But I do think it doesn't make sense to use tools that you don't understand and then just kind of like take that for the truth, right? Like you don't understand what's happening and then you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna ask, Chat GPT to generate this function. And then what if the function has a bug in it, right? So you still have to look at the code. You still have to like review it and but use it to like automate the boring stuff away, right? Like use it like that, get rid of the boring stuff, and then like I said, use it as a way to boost your speed and boost your effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, it's just the Jarvis to your Iron Man. It's just like every other automation tooling out there, like Grammarly and all this services or platform that just augment and make you more productive. AI is just like the next step. And you know, someone mentioned that this is like the first iPhone. It's still in the raw form. It's still very, very much crude, and just give it a couple of more years and it's going to get really way better. And I'm really excited about it, but I'm not really looking forward to like the old is going to take our jobs kind of thing. I just feel it's just going to augment and change the way we do work, as every other tech that has come out over the years. So yeah, it's exciting. So are you excited about any other thing other than AI in the web dev space? Like, there's a ton of buzzword like cloud native and serverless.
Yeah, I think edge computing is really interesting. I think the idea of servers being like located near your region, speeding up, the data it's not the data transfer, but like speeding up requests for users and your customers. I think that's really interesting. So if you're figuring out what else to work on because you're like, I don't care about AI, which is fine, I would definitely know how to use cloud stuff. I think cloud stuff is just going to be more and more foundational. I think that it's as good as it's ever been right now, and I think it's only going to get better over time. So I would say, yeah, cloud is really interesting. I'm really interested in what's going to happen with like computing ubiquity, which is this idea of like what's going to be the platform that's just like everywhere, and we'll stop having to like write code across a bunch of different targets. I'm wondering about that. Like that's going to be interesting because eventually, like, is the web just going to be the like solution to all of our problems at some point? where you can just write a website. You write HTML, JavaScript, and CSS code, and it just runs natively across containers, across platforms, and it's just the way we write code. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I think that's really interesting, though.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Um, isn't that? I think we have like a version of it with PWAs, right?
Yeah, PWAs are my favorite technology that nobody loves. PWAs do not get enough love in the streets, and I do not know why. Because so for people who are listening, a PWA is a progressive web application, and it's a way for you to be able to make a web page installable and run offline. Right? Sounds like an app, exactly. So if you thought that to yourself, like, yeah, that sounds like an app, exactly. It's a web app that you can install offline. You can install on your desktop computer. You can install it, like on mobile devices. But people don't give it any love. They still reach for native development, and I don't know why.
Yeah, no, my first introduction to PWAs, I had to learn about service workers. Most of these frameworks, they sort of like have that like built in these days, like just giving you like a plugin or something to build it up. But it wasn't all that friendly to learn about like the catch and how to invalidate the catch. It was a whole lot. I know it has gotten better because of course these frameworks are making it better, but most people feel if it's not native, it's not going to perform as native. I don't know what we're doing in web dev to actually push that assumption out, because I have an app right now, Typefully. It's like for Twitter stuff. The PWA really works really well and flawlessly. I love it. Like, it doesn't need to have like a mobile app, but they are working on a mobile app, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, mobile apps do have their use cases. I'm not against mobile. I don't want to turn that story, like, I don't want people to write headlines. Google developer does not like mobile apps. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think that from 90% of most use cases, you probably can get away with a PWA and be successful. So
Yep, I agree. On that note, we have Tayamba. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I think he has a question. Go for it, Tayamba.
Yeah, you got the name right. Thanks. Yeah, I put in the request because I was going to bring up PWAs, but then you guys covered it. It's like, oh, what am I going to talk about now? But yeah, I agree with Mark. It's like that technology that doesn't get enough love. And actually, one of the examples that I was going to bring up, when you actually think of like Twitter as many problems as it has or whatever, if you look at the native Twitter app, I just went and looked on my phone. It takes like 100 megabytes, just the app on its own. But the PWA is like 4 megabytes when you install it. And every time I show people that, they get blown away. So I'm quite sad that the hype kind of died around it. But I do see there's still people pushing it. So I really hope that I personally see that as like the path forward, honestly.
So I don't want to make this into a PWA space because people want to hear about web development, but I will say you're right. I mean, at one point I actually uninstalled the mobile app and installed the PWA on my phone because it was so much lighter. Uh, yeah, so PWA's definitely a big fan there. And by the way, shout out to you, Tayan, but you are always hanging tough with Angular. I see you, bro, and I just appreciate you. Thank you for always coming out and supporting.
Yeah, we're all working together. And thanks for the shout outs. Appreciate it.
Awesome stuff. The PWAs, they're really good, right? So the thing is, there was an idea, I don't know, called AMP. And I feel most people, maybe I'm wrong, but they are not really as excited as PWA because AMP sort of like died out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know enough about that project to, speak to.
Yeah. So, but I'm rooting for it, and I feel it's these days it's really easy to like spin it off to just add that like into your web app to just make it installable both on desktop and on mobile. Is just amazing. But well, we have a lot of work to do on that front. I'm seeing on, I don't know, I've seen this before on other Angular tweets, universal apps. What is that?
Oh, sure. Angular Universal was our server-side rendering solution. So you want to do SSR, and I know we got some big fans of SSR that out there. So what happened was this: before we had SSR, but it wasn't like really good, to be honest with you, because when you got the page to the rent to the browser, it would kind of get destroyed, right? And then when I say destroyed, meaning that like the Angular app, in order to bootstrap, it would delete all the DOM elements, and then have to redraw it, so you get a flicker on the screen. But we fixed that and we made it super better. It's so much better. And in Angular version 16, we have some exciting news to share. So definitely check out the Angular v16 release coming up very soon.
Ooh, spoilers, spoilers. I like it. I like it. Cool. That's really amazing. You know, the entire web dev, we are notorious for our acronyms, SSG, SSL, SPA, PWA, and everything. But I'm really looking forward to universal apps. So yeah, we've covered serverless and the edge, universal app, PWAs, and of course AI. Is there anything else you want to cover for web dev future? Or are
Yeah.
you only interested in Web3?
No, I do want to cover one other thing about the web dev future. Believe in yourself. That's my coverage. I think that we got people who need to be reminded to believe in themselves and believe that they can be successful. I know there are lots of people who are trying to get into technology, and yeah, it is a challenge, but it is a challenge that is well worth undertaking because you can do it. You literally can do it. It just don't compare yourself to other people and focus on your time and your journey. I cannot stress that enough. So here's a perfect example of my time, my journey. There are people who got to Google in their 20s. I didn't get to Google into my 40s, right? And so should I be ashamed of the fact that I didn't make it earlier? No. When the time was right for me to get here is when I got here. And so whatever your journey is, you should be focused on that. Like that's how you figure out your web dev future is to focus on your journey and be resolute in your goal.
I love it. So focus on your journey, focus on you. I've always like tell people that the only person you're competing with is your past self. Every day you get a little bit better, get a bit better, and your journey, your speed is all you. You don't have to compare yourself. You just keep getting better. Thank you so much for that, Mark.
Absolutely. I would love to just talk to some people. Anybody out there with questions? You got web dev questions, career questions. I just want to get with the streets. I want to answer. I want to talk to you, get to know you.
Yeah, please, folks, please take advantage of this opportunity. Grab the mic, come ask Mark a question. Mark is on the Angular team at Google. Questions, bring them up here.
Can
Okay.
I say one more thing about PWAs?
Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
Okay. The one thing that I think would help a lot with the adoption is, when you go on like a website and you actually see those buttons which say uh, install on the App Store for like iOS or install on the Play Store. They've got like those special buttons with the logo. And I've seen there's actually a repo which has one for PWAs, which looks quite nice. And I think that's actually quite attractive for a regular person. I'll see if I can find a picture to post in the chat. But I think things like that, where people will get more familiar with, oh, I'll just click this and download, and it's in a recognizable format, just like a Play Store button, App Store button, whatever. So I think that's
Okay.
one thing.
So fun fact about that, Tayama. The very fun fact in Chrome, there is an API that can allow you to prompt a user with an event like that. So they could click on a button and then we could prompt the install. It works in Chrome, but that API is not widely supported across browsers. Fun fact: in one of the major browsers outside of Chrome that works on fruit devices doesn't support it, which makes it a little bit less used because people try to use uh, browser APIs that are supported across browsers. So I know what you're talking about, and that's really unfortunate because I do agree with you that an install like button for PWAs that you could prompt a user would feel more natural than users having to clicking the address bar and not really sure what's going to happen next.
Mm, that is true. So for the typefully I was talking about the makers had to make a guide for you to like for your different browsers. So because for Safari is obviously different from Chrome and every other browser that could support it. So yeah, I think that's a barrier we could, we could have like a standard API across browsers. And the way browser moves, it's I'm not going to hold my breath for that to be unified. So we have okay, all right. This is Munamugara.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Hi,
but
hi.
please go ahead with the question.
Yeah, so my question is like not related to PWA, but my question is like there are frameworks like React and Angular, right? So they uses JavaScript. So what the people tell is like we should learn JavaScript before jumping into frameworks like React and Angular. So I know like I completed some courses and jumped into React. And I feel like there are some JavaScript pieces like I don't know, like map and set and some advanced features. And so I came back to learning JavaScript again, like picked up some books like Exploring ES6 and all, ES6, and I read it. So again, before I planning to going to React, but I am getting like imposter syndrome. Like I should know everything about JavaScript before learning React, and I know React very well, but I know I am missing some pieces in JavaScript. So for that, I am seeing like right now in the tweet like you don't know JS. So I'm in a FOMO that I should read everything about you don't know JS and start learning React. How to balance between when should stop JavaScript and continue learning a React or Angular and come back to JavaScript to know anything missing pieces on the go rather than uh, learning everything in the JavaScript, like reading tens and thousands of books about JavaScript before picking a framework.
All right, so I would say this. First off, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to finally talk to you. Well, I know we've talked before, on
Yeah,
Twitter, so it's good to actually talk to you. Here's the big
yeah,
thing that I'll say: don't let either side of that story block you from learning something, right? So it's super important. I tell people they should learn fundamentals, but that doesn't mean that I'm saying don't like learn how to code just because you can't learn the fundamentals first. So that's not the point, right? I think the best version of this is one, you just starting, right? Which you have, but this is for everybody who's listening. The best version of this story is that you start doing something, whether you start with a React tutorial, a Vue tutorial, anything. It doesn't even really matter. It's the fact that you are taking action. Then the second part of the story, I think, is making sure that you fill in the gaps at some point. So either you fill in the gaps first or you do it later, right? So, because like you said, you're going to come to some questions about JavaScript eventually, but I guess I just don't want it to be a gate that's blocking people where they say, well, I got to read 10 JavaScript books before I start coding. No, the best way to learn how to code is to start coding. You got to start. Then how to improve, that is the next step. Now, how do you improve? Well, then you do go back and you do read more books, right? Like I've read books. I'm still reading books. I've been writing code for almost 20 years at this point. I still read books. I still look at the things that I don't know with curiosity. Having that curious mind is the real solution. So, yeah, you will need both, but just don't feel stuck if you don't do it in a certain order. Just do something, then, get there.
Awesome stuff. So, for me, I have this mindset that I find it to be liberating, which is that you can never completely learn JavaScript. You're going to be learning it all through your career, and that gives me peace because there is no like I've mastered JavaScript, right? You just get to know it a little bit better as you go. So you know enough to build stuff. That's how I've been doing it. Like, so I started out learning from Free Code Camp, which I think was a very good choice because it sort of like gave me like a roadmap to like, okay, I'm building stuff, I'm learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript fundamentals. and I knew enough to like build the projects in there. And then I went to like get my first job working as a Vue.js front end developer. As I was learning that, I was always going back to like learning the language fundamentals. So my advice has always been stop trying to master JavaScript. You can only get better at it. So you keep getting better every day. Like I said, I'm reading the book two of You Don't Know JavaScript. I'm also taking a JavaScript problem solving and data structure course on front-end masters. So you just keep getting better at it. So the gaps will always show as you work. When you notice those gaps, you try to fill them up by going back to the fundamentals and going back to the things you glossed over and getting better at it. So that's my own take on that.
Okay. My request is that can you give Shah like she works she's in the listening mode, like she works in the Netflix. Can you give her a speaker?
I don't think I understand the question. You want me to give someone a speaker
Yeah,
request?
yeah. Like an sound like
Shondai?
sound
Oh,
person.
I, I don't know if Shondai want to come up, but let's see.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Shundai, come
sorry
up.
if I
Come up,
spelled
Shundai.
your name wrong.
Shonda, Shonda, come up. So why Shonda is coming up? So we just pointed that out. Team L. All right. Do you have a question?
I didn't have a question, but when Mark was talking about where to start, I kind of wanted to add on to that because I was on here earlier. I have to sign off for a quick meeting, but I was thinking like the best place to start is like start with what excites you. So like if you have like an idea or uh or whatever, just kind of like find a place that will get you moving and excited about it. And because everything's tied together, you can kind of like, work backwards from there if you need to. I think the best way to do that is just kind of get excited. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, totally. That makes a whole lot of sense. I I've mostly been project driven all through my career, and I think that really helped me because I didn't learn how to code because of it, like to get a job. I just learned it because I was really interested in telling the computer to do stuff. So that has always been it for me. And yeah, start with what interests you, build stuff, you're builders, just build something, right? Solve a problem. And with that, we have Shundai up in here. Hi, Shundai.
Hello, sorry, I'm going for a walk. I was just listening to y'all as I was walking, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's amazing. Awesome. Thank you for coming up.
Yeah. Did somebody have a question for me or I feel like a
Yeah, I think um he has a question for you.
Yeah,
Munamungara, you go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, as I said, like before learning React or Angular, I have read about I have completed some courses in JavaScript. But while I'm going reading React, I'm coming to know that there are some gaps need to be filled in the JavaScript. So I came back to JavaScript and reading a book. Again, before jumping to React, I feel like there are some pieces more I need to know before going to React. Like as of now, I'm reading a book called ES6, exploring ES6. But after completing, I getting a FOMO that I should read about YDK.js, like everything about it before jumping to React. How to balance between these two? Like, should I fill the gaps as I go learning doing React, or should I learn JavaScript every bit and start learning React? How to balance between this?
so in general, I'm also an advocate for learning the fundamentals of the language, like JavaScript
Yeah,
before you go to React. But that being said, you don't have to over index on it. Like you don't have to learn every single thing because like the truth is that as a web developer most of my day is just googling stuff and like figuring out like i know the um I know the basic patterns and I know like what I'm trying to do, and if I'm trying to iterate over an array, I know that there's a method for that in JavaScript, but I may not remember the name for it. And so a lot of it is just like Googling stuff all day. So I would say if you feel comfortable, like you understand the fundamentals and how JavaScript works, just go ahead and move on to React. And you can always go back. It's not like, you have to stop learning JavaScript as you're learning React. But I think like learning React is going to help solidify some of the JavaScript concepts, and vice versa. Like learning more JavaScript is going to help you to understand React. So I think you can continue to learn JavaScript and pick up React as well. And then it'll start to get to the point where you're just moving really fast in React. But it was mentioned before that you never are going to stop learning. Like you're going to learn JavaScript and you're going to keep learning it throughout your entire career. Same thing with React if it ends up, living forever, which I hope it does because that's what my career is based on. But you're always gonna be learning. So don't feel like you're not ready. Just go ahead and take the leap. I would say pick up React stuff now.
Yeah, okay. Like as I said, like my problem is that maps, set like those advanced features, I'm feeling that I should know about it. That's it.
Thanks for the question and thanks for calling me up, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
no problem. It's good to hear a genius like yourself
Get out of
agree
here.
with us. So
Get out of
it's
here.
good.
Thanks, Mark. I'm gonna step down. Is that okay? I feel like I'm breathing really heavy and I'm walking, so
Uh,
Oh man, y'all are hilarious.
that's totally fine. Um, yeah. So Shondai said something. I've been preaching this also in my workshops and my talks. Like we are, you're gonna Google stuff, and that's not it's not a bad thing. Like I see most people new to web dev, they want to like memorize the syntax. I've got to know all the arguments the map is gonna take, and you you don't need to do that, right? I believe the retention comes from repetition. So the more you use it, if you forget the syntax or you forget the method or you don't remember anything, you Google that stuff, go to MDM, read about it. The more you use it, the more you get better at it, and it's not Hollywood. You're not gonna just code on your system like that. You're gonna look up stuff. Right, Mark?
100% you're gonna look up stuff. I mean, there's just this is just a lifelong journey and development. So anything that you want to be good at, right? So one of the things is I'm a musician, and I know musicians who are professional level who still practice every day, right? Like they still practice. Like even though they've been playing their instrument for ages, they still practice because there was always more to learn. So take the pressure. I want everybody in this room to take the pressure off of themselves to be perfect because one, that's unattainable. And two, it's not even the whole point. The whole point is to continue to just improve and to grow in the skills that you need to get what you want. Grow in the skills that you need to get what you want, and I want to apologize for being a hater. We've all been a bunch of haters on Sean Day because if you go to her LinkedIn, she pronounces her name, and we've been calling her Sean Day this whole time, and that's messed up. So many apologies for that. We should know better in these streets. So sorry, Sean Day. Oh man, I feel bad. And I know you, which makes it worse that I know you. Oh man, I got to get my act together.
Oh, but now I don't know if you're trolling, Mark. We should have asked.
No, I'm not trolling. I'm not trolling. This is true. I don't even have time to troll. This is true. We were saying Shantai at the Day. Man, that's messed up. That's okay, but we can do better, right? So look, this is a perfect example of real-time learning. We've learned something that we thought we knew, and we learned something different, and now we can go for it being better.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely gonna go forward doing better. And yes, like if we all get comfortable to the fact that we are gonna be lifetime learners, it just removes the whole pressure, right? Like you're not gonna be 100% knowing JavaScript, Vue, React, or whatever. You just it's gonna evolve. There are gonna be gaps. You're gonna keep improving, and that's the whole point, right? You getting better at it, and like I said, repetition is going to breed retention. So the more you repeat it, like musicians, the more they practice, the more they get to learn new things and get better. So that's it for us web developers as well. You practice, you build stuff, you get better. You figure out there's a gap, you go back to MDN or any docs. And please, we all should encourage developers to be comfortable reading the docs, because I've had this a lot. People just come up like, what's the YouTube course? What's the Udemy course? And I'll be like, yo, read the docs. And be like, no, the docs is confusing. I'll be like, that's like first party, first hand reference to the tech you're trying to learn. You should get comfortable reading the docs. What do you think about the docs, Mark?
It's a fundamental tool, right? So one, read the docs because people work on them and they write them, so read them. But the second and more real answer here is that if you read the documentation, a lot of times you can find what you're looking for, and it may expose some things that you didn't know that you needed.
That is so true. And like, I feel the art of reading the docs is just liberating, because, like I said, it's first party. Like, the makers of the tool are directly telling you this is how to use it. And sometimes messages get lost in translation or get watered down in the tutorials. In the so they just want to get something done, right? They just want to get you comfortable. They might gloss over stuff, but if you make it an habit to read the docs, like, I read the docs like a book, like, I'm just that person that binge on a doc. I can say for a fact I've literally finished a certain docs I'm not going to mention, like, read it from the first page to the last page, and it was just liberating. So read the docs, everybody. Any tech you're learning, make it an habit to read the docs. We have a maker. I think he has a question.
Yeah,
Go
good
for it.
evening, everyone. Thank you, Kelvin, for hosting this space. I think it was one of your posts on Twitter. I saw something about reading documentations. So I want to ask, which is more important, watching tutorials like on YouTube and all that, or reading? Which should be more important?
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the way I see it, or the way I feel. Like, the documentation, I know before some docs are horrible, and that really scare most people from reading the docs. And in terms of importance, I would say for me, the docs is always the first point, the first resource I go to in order to learn a new tech. But not for everyone, right? Some people just want to, like, a hands-on, okay, someone is building XYZ with this tool, and they just build from there. So I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. Or what I would say is, for the first-hand understanding of a technology, the docs is the best source of truth. You could augment it with a tutorial to sort of give you, like, how to piece everything together. But the docs are doing great these days with, like, guides and links to videos made by, like, folks in the docs team. So for me, the docs is the first point of view. What do you want to say about that, Mark?
The older I get and the more experience I get, the looser my convictions become around the right way to do stuff versus just do something. And so I know this sounds like a non-answer, but it's just I just say this: like, use a thing that helps you get what you're trying to get, which is you're trying to gain some knowledge. So if you like videos because they're just better for you, then go for it. Go for it, because you're going to have to pay the cost of, like, learning the intricacies as mastery of the topic comes over time. Like, that will just come. So there will be a time where you be forced to go to the docs or the source code. Like, that's something that I was terrified of early in my career, going into the source code. And so I didn't do it for a long time. I didn't do it until I needed to. And then one day I actually needed to go into the source code because I couldn't figure out from the documentation or any videos what was wrong. And then I actually looked and I was like, okay, this is scary, but I'm doing it, right? So just do something. So, like, learn and do stuff, but don't spend all your time learning. Put what you've learned into practice.
Awesome stuff. It's actually funny you mentioned reading the source code, because it's one thing people are so scared of doing. Like, I had to do a whole stream about source diving, because the the greatest thing I like about open source is you having access to the source code, because you could literally learn from the pattern of great engineers and that have evolved the code over the years. But reading the source code is really daunting for most people, really.
Yeah, source code is scary just because I'll tell you how I felt. Coming up, I just felt like, man, the people who wrote the stuff that I'm using must be smarter than me. So there's no way that I'll be able to read the source code and understand what's happening. Like that can't be possible. But you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised at what you can do once you get over the fear. Like I've been trying to put together this idea of like anti-fear driven development. So I have a good friend, Natalie Davis, and one time I said something to her about a task. I was like, well, it's only hard until you do it. And that's kind of the same thing with no matter what it is, whether it's reading the source code, whether it's learning a new framework, it's only hard until you do it. Because it's hard, like you build up all these thoughts in your brain about what it's going to be like, what it's going to cost you to do it. Will you even be able to do it? And maybe, I don't know, but you won't know until you try, until you get your hands into the mix of it. You just got to do it. Like when I interviewed for Google, like I was terrified, straight up terrified at first before I started prepping. Then I became less terrified. I became less scared at all. I wasn't even scared by the time I got to it because I was like, look, this will be whatever it is because I've put in my best effort, period. Whatever the outcome is, I've put in my best effort. But before I started, I had all these preconceived notions of what was going to happen, all this fear of how hard it was going to be. And it was only hard until I did it. Then when I did it, I was like, oh, yeah, that was a challenge, but I did it though. And I proved myself right that I could do anything. And just like you all out here listening, you can do anything. And so anytime there's an opportunity for me to encourage you, I'm going to take it. And this is one of those opportunities. Yeah, like don't let the fear of like what you're supposed to do or what the right way is block you. Like that is, we just passed that. Just do stuff. Just do it. And some of it's going to be right. And guess what? Some of it's going to be wrong. Like I'm going to open up a pull request today that I'm expecting feedback about things that's probably wrong. And it's not that I didn't give my best effort, but I did what I could with what I know. Now I'm probably going to learn some stuff, and that's okay. You are.
Awesome. You can go ahead, Mark.
Oh no, that was it. I'm off of my soapbox. I already released the video today. I don't need to do any more messages.
Yeah, like I love it. It was actually one of your videos that made me reach out to you. I was like, whoa, this is deep. We need to hear from him and get encouraged by Mark. So feel the fear, but do it anyhow. And it's anytime I get the question of what is the right way or what to learn, I think, do I even know the right way? I've been experimenting all through I just keep learning stuff and unlearning and making the mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and just keep figuring it out. So you just have to get comfortable figuring things out because no one really knows the right way, right? Everything anyone tells you is nuanced based on your experience. You could learn from it, of course, but at the end of the day, you have to take it with a grain of salt and just like figure things out, fail, but the failure is an opportunity for you to learn, right? You're going to learn something. You're going to learn how not to do it the next time, or you're going to get better. So that's it.
And listen, it's the right way today. We don't even know what's going to happen. What new patterns will emerge, right? I mean, it's the right way today. Because so think about this. So here's something that's really interesting. And we talked about what SSR, server side rendering, right? Now, when I first started writing code back in the I actually started writing code in the late '90s, but my first job writing code was in the early 2000s. Now, what's funny is that we were doing server side rendering only. There was no other option. There were no client side frameworks or client side rendering options. And so at the time, that was the right way. And then single page applications came around, and then everybody switched to single page applications and said, why are you doing server side? Why would you do that? That's so slow. That's so slow. We don't need to do server side rendering. Do client side because now the client will be more responsive. And look at how the pendulum has swung once again. Now we're saying do both. So what was the right way then? It's not even the right. You see, it became from the right way to not the right way to back to the right way. And now everybody's kind of putting a lot of effort into making the best combination of server-side rendering, and client-side rendering. Now everybody wants this combo. So the thing is, what's right changes over time. So that's why I keep saying don't spend all your time focused on learning. Spend your time with a combination of learning and doing and experimenting. Just like Kelvin said, experiment. You got to try stuff. You just have to try stuff. And you cannot let the fear of the unknown. One thing I tell developers who are coming up, this is a really big moment for them because they get this paralysis, when they're thinking about what to do or if they're gonna like write some code. They're trying to they get this paralysis and they don't want to break something. And I'm like, it doesn't work anyway. So why are you so afraid to break it? It doesn't even work. So just experiment because guess what's gonna happen on the other side of you breaking it? You're gonna learn something. You're gonna learn, and this is how you grow. This is how you get those lessons for your interviews when they tell you, "Well, tell me about a time when something was really hard." Oh yeah, remember that time that I had to, implement server-side rendering for an application I didn't know what I was doing, right? That's how you get those stories, but you can't let the fear paralyze you. Or I don't know if I should say paralyzed. You can't let the fear freeze you. Let's say that. I think that's a better way to say it. You can't let it make you freeze in place, right? You gotta just do stuff.
Yep, I totally agree. And I think it's one of the reasons why we have version in digital software. It should signal to you that the makers still don't know what the final version is going to look like. So it's going to be an iterative process. So you have the version 1, like version 1.1, then we come out with a version 2, right? We've learned, we've known better, we know how to build this better. So give you a version 2. Then they go to version 3. It just keep going, and it's so fun because like I wrote a blog post a while ago that if you know better, you will code better. Because most people will be like, okay, what's the right way to write this code to make it perform? Like, don't worry about it. You're gonna learn in next 1 month, 2 months, and you're gonna get better, and you're gonna rewrite that code. You're gonna improve on it based on your now current knowledge. 2 years from now, you're gonna look at it and be like, oh, did I really write this thing? Let's change it. This sucks, right? Because you're getting better. It's going to be reflected in the apps you build. So don't worry about it. Just keep doing. Do the lists. Do what you know now. You're going to get better.
Do you know, even as a senior engineer with literally almost 2 decades of experience, how often that happens to me where I look back at something I've done in the past? I even look back at my old videos and I'm like, ugh, gross. Like I did that, like that looks really bad, or that sounds bad, or blah, blah. If you look at the Angular channel, some of those first videos that I produced, it was just like, man, I thought they were amazing at the time because they were what I could do at the time that I did it with the skills that I had. Right? Like that's the whole point. Like your whole journey is, are you doing what you can do with the skills that you have? And at the time, those were the skills that I had. And guess what I did? I learned, I watched YouTube videos, and then guess what else I did? I read documentation and I read blogs and I read books, and then I got better. So then, specifically about my video stuff, my videos got better over time. My videos are better at the end of this current season of my Good Morning series than they were when I started. I learned things about microphone placement even in this last 2 months, right? So even that's better. So if that's just with videos, imagine what you will learn in code as you continue to build and as you continue to explore. But as long as you're frozen and unable to make a decision because you are afraid of breaking stuff, then you won't get there. You just won't get there.
Yeah, that's just it, folks. Please start with your current knowledge and capacity. It's an iterative process. Like I just believe that so much, and I don't get scared of doing stuff. So I'm gonna do the whatever I understand right now. I'm gonna write it the way it is to get the output. When I know better, I'm going to improve on it. That's just it. You just keep improving, keeps getting better. You just keep pushing it. Okay. So yeah, I think we could call it right now. We've gone over an hour. This has been really insightful, Mark. Do you have anything else you want to tell us before we go?
Yeah, last thing. This is super important. So make sure you get your pens out. You got this. That's the thing. That's what I want you to know. I say that joking, but I'm being serious. You got this. Just keep going, friends. Like seriously, just keep going. If you keep going, incremental progress is still progress. So just keep going. You can do it. Like seriously, you can. And I believe in you a a lot.
I love it. Incremental progress is still progress, y'all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for speaking. Sean Day, right, Mark? Sean Day?
Yeah, Shonda, don't call her Shonda, man. Y'all trying to get me like out of my friendship? Stop it. She ain't about to
Okay.
be roasting me. Like, get out of here.
Got it, got it. Yeah. Also, Natalia, I see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. So you all go follow Mark. He's amazing. He gives out inspiration videos, and also check out his work on Angular. Keep an eye out on Angular. Like I've said before, Angular is a tech for you to watch out for. They're coming. So yeah. Thank you. You all have a wonderful evening, day, wherever you are. And go follow Mark, of course. Give me a follow for more of these spaces. And yeah, bye everybody.
Take
Bye,
care.
Mark. Yeah, bye.
Thanks for having me, Kelvin. Good to hang out with you.
It's a pleasure. Love it.